Let me start this video out by saying I played this tournament very, very poorly. This was probably one of my worst tournament performances I've had in a very long time. And honestly, I think part of it has to do with the fact that I just am not super comfortable with the deck I'm playing, but also I think I was just greedy and very complacent with my games. I think I just needed to take a little bit more time. I played too fast, I played to my weaknesses, and it just wasn't very good. That being said, I did play zombies. And this was my first time really playing zombies in tournament, and I will say that regardless of what my results show, I do feel like this build I took was very, very strong. So I thought it was worth showing the gameplay, and especially after looking over my replays and the mistakes, I think a lot of the games I lost should have been won had I played properly. And that's oftentimes something you need to look at in terms of, tournament performance. Did you lose because your deck was bad, or did you lose because you played your deck bad? And I think in this scenario, I played my deck very bad, because ultimately, I feel like the zombie list was very, very optimized, and I really wanted to share it with you guys. I feel like a lot of YouTubers typically show performances in tournaments where they do really well, and then they kind of like hide or don't make videos on when they do poorly. This is a video where I did poorly. But, like I said, I do still feel like this build is strong, and I want to showcase it for you right now. So, we're going to get into it. I want to do a deck profile, but I want to do a paper deck profile because ultimately these cards are beautiful, guys, and, it's worth showing sometimes. I don't feel like you do like zombies justice if you build them on dueling books. So I'll put a link to the deck, a dueling book link to the deck in the description below so you guys can download it if you want. But we'll go over the cards real quick and then we'll jump right into the gameplay and you can take a look. But yeah. Now you might be looking at the spread here and being like, Tyler, did you play heroes? And I know these shinings might be confusing, but we will get to those later. So we're going to start with the main deck. We'll move this stuff over. All right, so for the main deck, for the monsters, we're starting out, we have BLS. Now, honestly, a lot of zombie players cut BLS. They don't opt to run it because, quite frankly, you really don't want to oversaturate with lights. Space and zombies is weirdly tight, but the way I saw it was I was running 3 copies of Effect Veiler and then a bunch of darks. So I was like, you know what? This card is just too good not to run. And I even supplement it by running a copy of 1-for-1. I'll get into that a bit later. But this will help you get Veilers onto the field if you need to go for a BLS push. But, I'm maxed out on Veilers because I think that card's insane. So I felt like I could justify running a single BLS. And I even sided this card out a couple times if that, if it's a little confusing. Like, if you don't need Veiler, you just side out the BLS. The second boss monster, you always leave in Dark Arm Dragon. This card's Thanos. It's so good. And then we have 2 Tragodia. This doesn't need much explanation. Necro has talked about this, saying it's like one of the best cards in zombies. I think I agree. It's so versatile, so strong. 2 Caius. Again, this card's just super powerful in zombies. You're running so many floaters, you tribute them, you banish something. It's very, very good. Then I have 1 copy of Zombie Master, 1 copy of Mizuki, and then 3 Goblin Zombie. So, Goblin Zombie is the bread and butter of zombies. It's your main floater. You definitely want to see this opening hand, so I wanted to max out on it. Going down here, we have Quake Spreader, and then the last zombie I have is Spirit Reaper. So that's it for the full zombie package. I felt like this was like perfect ratios of everything. I never felt like I needed more than like 1, like Zombie Master, for example, more than 1 Spirit Reaper. It all just worked very cleanly for me. The next card is obviously 3 Tour Guide. This card's just so broken in zombies because of the fact that you have the Tour Guide into the Sangan, and it can give you Leviair, bring back Mizuki. There are so many crazy plays with this card, if I'm being honest. Like, for example, I oftentimes use Tour Guide, and you could, like, there are scenarios where you can, like, Call of the Haunted back a Tour Guide, Bryanek bounce the Tour Guide, then bounce the Call of the Haunted, and then normal Tour Guide to do Leviair again. Just weird little niche combos with it, which is really cool, but I really like this card. It just makes zombies ceiling so much higher, and it's so fun to use. Next I ran 2 Card Trooper, and the reason I wanted to run Card Trooper is, 1, I don't think milling in this deck is like bad by any means at all. You have a chance to send the Veilers for BLS to be live. But the biggest reason why I ran it was because I wanted to have an out to Thunder King. I feel like Thunder King is really crippling versus this deck because of the fact that you have Goblin Zombie, but this is also just another floater to throw in the grave, and I'm running Call of the Haunted, right? So between Goblin Zombie, Sangan, and Card Trooper, Call of the Haunted becomes extremely chainable as soon as one of these guys are in the graveyard, but this is just a 1-card slam into Thunder King and draw a card, so I think it's really valuable. It's also really good against heroes. You summon it, your opponent has an alias on field. If they have Gemini Spark and you just summon Card Trooper and attack into it, they're forced to just like Gemini Spark your card trooper, which feels really, really bad. So I think this card was perfect. I'm really happy I ran it. I think it tested really well. The next card we're running is Glow Up Bulb. Now, I don't see Necro in his zombie build running this. If you don't know who Necro is, he's like probably the most like prominent zombie player in our Discord. He like plays it almost at every tournament. But I think Glow Up Bulb is absolutely broken in zombies, right? Like, there's too many situations where I have Glow Up Bulb in hand and I have a Goblin zombie. They attack over the Goblin zombie. You search the Zombie Master. You pitch the Glow Up Bulb to bring back Goblin zombie, and you can just make 9 right there. And like that gives you Trishula plus a search. So even if they Veiler, it doesn't even feel that bad. It's really, really good. And a lot of times they're going to try to Veiler the Zombie Master effect rather than a Trishula, so you don't even have to fully commit. So if you have like Mizuki or other extenders, there's a way to play around it. Really, really cool card. I think this is like absolutely necessary in zombies. So I feel like this is so good. And the last card I'm running for hand traps, I just have 3 effect Veiler. This is pretty self-explanatory. I think it's just the best. I think it's just the best hand trap in the game for this format. I didn't main Max C because, quite frankly, every time I main Max C, it feels very underwhelming. I don't really think I need to use it. And so, yeah, this is the full monster list, you know, if you want to take a look at that, and then we'll move on to the spells. All right, now for the spells, we have not a huge clump of them, but, you know, just a pretty small count. We have Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, the Trinity. Of course, you're naturally going to be running these. All of these cards are very good. We ran Mind Control. I think it's the best card in the format. 1-for-1. The main reason why we're running 1-for-1 is because of the fact that, like I said, you can bring out Glow Up Bulb, which is really insane. Pitching a Mizuki, like sometimes you just need to discard in zombies. I felt like this was the best way to do it, but also you can just get a Veiler from deck and synchro with it, which can open up plays for, it's basically like a 4th light monster, but it's a more versatile, right? Like, because it gives you Veiler potentially for BLS. That being said, I will say I typically side this out in game 2 just because I don't want to, like, if they side in Max Cs, I just want to reduce any vulnerability to the card. Next we have Pot of Avarice. We're milling a lot, and you want to put your tour guides back. That's pretty much the main reason it's there. And then we have 1 Book of Moon, just another out to Thunder King and very versatile, and then 2 MST in the main deck. Wasn't really worried about back row too much. The deck's full of floaters, so you know there's really not a ton of concern with back row. You can slowly grind through it. But yeah, that is the entire spell lineup, right? I think that's like 9 spells or something like that. So all right, now onto the traps. We had 2 Deep Prison. This is necessary. You need outs to Thunder King, so I really like Deep Prison. I just think it's better than Mirror Force in reality, so I wanted to run 2 of these. I also, sometimes I would side this out, just depending on if I was going first or second. Like if I was going second, I would side this out for Chaos Trap Hole. If I was going first, I'd side this out for Chaos Trap Hole, but if I'm going second, I put Deep Prison back in. Call of the Haunted. I put this as a 2 of, so you might have noticed in the spells I wasn't running Book of Life, and that's just because I noticed I would brick on that card all the time. Like I felt like Book of Life is just really bad. What makes Call of the Haunted good is it's a chainable Reborn, right? So since I'm running 3 Goblin Zombie, 2 Card Trooper, and a Sangan, there's a really high chance I have this set and my opponent like Heavy Storms or something, and I just get to replace a card. So Heavy Storm becomes a 1-for-1 if you have 2 back row set, right? So I like this having a punish to blind space, stuff like that. I feel like it's really good, and I feel like this is the most Reborn with Monster Reborn that you would need. Any more is bricky. Then we ran 2 Solemn Warning. I think Solemn Warning is, you know, pretty standard. We got Solemn Judgment. Torrential, we're obviously running a lot of floaters. It's really good. And then the last card is Trap Dash Shoot. So 41 card main deck. Those are all the traps. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't really need to get into it much. So I think it's important that I do the side deck first before I do the extras, because it'll make things in the extra deck make a little more sense. But we're going to start with, I have 1 Elemental Hero, the Shining, and 2 Super Poly for the side, right? This is mostly because of the fact that I feel like heroes are getting more and more popular, and one thing I noticed when watching Necro's tournament play and stuff like that, really doesn't feel like extra deck space in zombies is tight at all. So I feel like if it's not tight for you, and you have room to throw things in, then Super Poly becomes really, really good against heroes, because anytime they put 2 monsters on field, you literally just get to fuse with their board. The fact that it discards can like pitch a Mizuki or a Plague or Glow Up, I think is really strong too. So yeah, I feel like this was a very good call. I'm honestly low-key considering after my tournament performance bumping this up to 3, because Heroes was a very hard matchup. Like the deck is just very, very versatile and strong. And like I said, it's getting more and more popular. So I think running 3 Super Poly could be worth it, you know, in the future. We ran 1 MST, 2 Cyber Dragon. This is obviously for Karakuri's. 3 Max C. And then I did 3 Chaos Trap Hole. I think I would bump this down. I think 2 is just a much better ratio for Chaos Trap Hole. I've been running it at 3 in some decks, but I never felt the need to put 3 in this tournament. I always felt like 2 was just better because like you just don't want to have that many in. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was like this card's still really, really good. And then the last 3 cards are going to be 3 Royal Decree. Most of your cards are chainable, and if you're against a heavy back row deck, like you have a lot of monsters and tools like with your graveyard, where you don't really need to rely on traps that much, especially when you're maining Trag and stuff like that. You can cut your trap count down and then put Royal Decree in, and it can just be game winning. And you know, I think some of my tournament matches like showed that or demonstrated that. So yeah, that is it for the side deck, guys. That's what I ran. Like I said, I probably would swap this out maybe for like a DD Crow or even the 3rd Super Poly. I think would be best. All right, last but not least, we have the extra deck. So like I said, extra deck space in this deck is not tight at all, right? We have Elemental Hero the Shining and 1 Chimera Tech. I main both of these because again, I really feel like the cards in my extra deck are at a perfect ratio, and I'll never need more than what I have. And it really never came up where I was like, oh man, I wish I had something else, right? So I had these 2 in main. Again, this basically means like if I'm going against heroes, I side out a Chimera Tech and side in the 2nd copy of the Shining. That way all of my Super Polys are live in case I need to resolve 2. I think it's very realistic, but that's also where I think I need to bump Super Poly up to 3 so I can see it more. Then I had 1 copy of Utopia. That's my only rank 4. 1 copy of Leviathan Dragon. Utopia is also nice because it's a light, but Leviathan Dragon's pretty self-explanatory. Levier is also very self-explanatory. We ran 1 copy of Trishula, 1 copy of Scrap Dragon, 1 copy of Stardust, 1 Black Rose, 1 Revived King Hades. This card is not so insane. And then we had 1 copy of Bryanak, and we'll put the last 3 down here. We have 1 Catasaur, 1 Librarian, and 1 Armory Arm. I really like Librarian in this list, especially when I'm running Glow Up Bulb. It just means like with Glow Up Bulb, you can like normal summon it, synchro for 5 with a Goblin Zombie. Like if you have Mizuki and Glow Up Bulb, it just like gives you so many extended plays. Like you can build a massive board, and you'll kind of see that in one of my games. Armory Arm is a must. 1, it's a light, so like if you have a Spirit Reaper or like a Dead Tour Guide on field and a Glow Up Bulb or something, or a Veiler, you can make this card. It's really nice. It definitely came up for me and won me a game, so I would 100% encourage running it. But yeah, that's it for the extra deck, guys. I think like I said, I feel like this list performed very, very well for me. I was super happy with how it did. I just think that I played it very, very bad, and we'll kind of jump into those matches so you guys can take a look at how I did. But yeah, if you were interested in playing zombies, I would really encourage you to play this build. The one thing I will say about zombies is I feel like in terms of strength, I think it's actually very, very strong. I think in terms of difficulty, it is actually very difficult. There's a lot of decisions you have to make that are like super small but make a huge difference over time, and you kind of see that like basically every Goblin Zombie search is a very, very big decision, and you have to make the correct call at like every point. And sometimes it's like, do I set a Goblin Zombie or do I like try to make an extension here? There's actually a lot of very small decisions, and I learned this deck is very hard. So, you know, kudos to Necro for piloting it all the time. Like, it does take a lot of skill. I will say that 100%. And honestly, I'd really like to run this deck back in a tournament because I think, you know, if I played it better, it would be a dub. This deck is very, very strong. But yeah, without any further ado, let's just hop into those games. You guys can take a look for yourself. We'll kind of break down the mistakes I made and so on and so forth. All right, so the tournament I entered into was actually Tengu Rumble, and if you don't know what this tournament is, it's basically an event where you have 72 hours to play out your matches. That way you don't have to like play out in a single day, or like, you know, it's usually for those who are a little bit more busy. I'll put a link to the Discord in the description below so you can participate in the next one. They're a lot of fun, and it's one of the only tournaments I'm actually able to participate in because it doesn't require me to, you know, be there for a full day, because usually I'm streaming the event. So got to play out in this one, but we're against Violet. They're playing heroes, and obviously I'm on my zombies, so we'll just kind of jump right into it. So I opened a pretty underwhelming hand. My opponent has Trap Dust Shoot, which is pretty unfortunate. You know, honestly, a pretty Thanos hand of honest Honest plus Trap Dust Shoot. The Trap Dust Shoot comes out, snipes away my Tragodia. I'm forced to just go for a synchro play, and I get bottomless, which is, it is what it is, right? We set the Torrential and they slam it. This is one thing I will say to hero players: don't activate Future Fusion if you know your opponent has Torrential, because now I'm just gonna sit here and wait, basically, to use my Torrential on their card, right? So I lose my Goblin Zombie, I get to add another one, and then yeah, I just wait on their next card. I set the Goblin Zombie just to get another search, because I searched one and they got another one. They go for the Shining. It is what it is. I go for a play and I decide to try to slam a Trish. Unfortunately, I get warning, but it's probably worth, I mean, I still think it was worth the gamble. This means I then have to just kind of like set everything. I have another Call of the Haunted. I take some more damage. I summon. I go for a 6 play, which gives me Bryanak into a discard, which is really, really good. So I'm able to out that. I swing in, I pitch the Card Trooper to bounce my Call of the Haunted, because Card Trooper is a lot more useful. Since I'm low on life, I use Mizuki to set up some defense. I swing in, you know, I still have a synchro play in main phase 2. That's why I did that. Otherwise, you know, I should have put it in the attack. Okay, now here, actually, you guys didn't see it because it was going fast, but one thing we noticed, which is actually really unfortunate, is Violet forgot to mill off of my Goblin Zombie. So this, as you can see from here, they like drew into they duality'd into Effect Veiler, Thunder King, and E-Call. And this is where things were a bit more scuffed, because of the fact that this should have been them drawing into Effect Veiler instead of the duality. So technically this would have been a dub had we caught it, but I didn't catch it. It was accepted game state. So this is just one of the many misplays I've made in this tournament, which is really disappointing, because yeah, now they just go for a alias into honest play, and I cannot win. But you know, like I said, otherwise it would have just been game for me. So we go into game 2. I open kind of a Thanos hand. We go for a mill and I set things. I have Trap Dust Shoot. I get rid of the Thunder King. They use Future Fusion. I know I can deal with that just by warning it. I don't really care about the Strato summon very much. I get the draw, get the Tragodia. I then pitch to steal their Stratos, make my Tragodia level 4, make Utopia, and go for 2 red into Sangan, knowing I could bait the Max C. We swing in direct, you know, not like most hero players don't run Gores. It's kind of low probability, I usually feel like. They summon a monster, I can just save it. And then knowing what their hand was, I was able to just mind control and just attack for game there. They set the 2 back row that were on the far right, so I was like pretty confident it was the same ones I already saw, so there's no shot that I lose there. So now we're in game 3. I think game 3 was like kind of a banger. It was pretty close. But I get hit with a Thunder King into into my Spirit Reaper play. I decided to go for a Leviathan Dragon, try to force out the Thunder King. My goal was just to deal with this Thunder King at some point. But unfortunately, there just kept being more and more responses. I summoned Cyber Dragon. I get hit with a D Prison. I didn't want to Judgment it because I have my own D Prison, so I was like, okay, whatever. I set the D Prison and they attack. I get the D Prison off, and they're able to just activate Duality and add another Thunder King back, which is just really unlucky. They summon it, and that's where I feel like I have to Judgment so I can start playing the game. Swinging with Goblin Zombie, I get Hero Blasted. It is what it is. I get Zombie Master. We set a back row. They attack. I feel like it's worth booking here. I normal summon Zombie Master, pitch, get Goblin Zombie back, attack, and then attack directly. Then I make Utopia to like try to survive, and they just have Miracle Fusion or Dark Hole into Miracle Fusion. So yeah, it was kind of sad. Like, I mean, I was just above the threshold to lose to exactly Dark Hole Miracle Fusion, and they had it. So like I said, a bit unlucky on this game, if I'm being honest. The biggest misplay was not watching my Goblin Zombie mill, because it actually made a huge difference in game 1. So we ended up, you know, losing the first match. You know, it is what it is. Like I said, we're living and learning. We're learning from our mistakes in this tournament, and there were quite a few of them. So we'll go into game 2. For game 2, I'm playing against Jaina. Jaina is playing a like Kuraz, like KFC type deck. I decide to play it safe and just set Goblin Zombie. I deprison out the Rhino, feels worth, and I use Goblin Zombie's effect to search Mizuki. This is really strong with the mind control because I can just steal and like go over and like take their monster, and then if they out this, I have still Mizuki to bring back Goblin Zombie. Jaina reveals that she has double terraforming, which for me is just like, okay, their hand is like really, really bad, right? That's like how I'm thinking about it. So I'm able to detach the Mizuki, use Mizuki effect, and then I tribute. And here I actually paused, and like before the torrential flip, I was actually low-key reading the torrential. In hindsight, I think because I had this like Goblin Zombie play into a search and a way to protect another attack, maybe I should have just targeted the Gear Town. This was a really tough call. I like, it was like basically, if it's exactly torrential, it's rough, but you know, if it's anything but torrential, it's fine. But yeah, we get kind of punished there. It wasn't the end of the world, but I think I could have maybe played it a bit better. So you know, there's another play. We go for torrential. I didn't even consider the fact that there was like another field spell possibility, so I was like kind of shocked by that. I set plague, get Mindcon, and unfortunately there's nothing that Jaina can do with that. So then she uses make Stardust Dragon. I'm able to go Goblin Zombie. I go for Plague. I need to deal with the Stardust Dragon, which means I'm going to have a very tiny Bryanak on board, but I at least get a search, and then I can just like pitch a card to bounce it. And then I'm able to Avarice things back, so not a huge deal. We're in an okay spot. Jaina just has a ton of tokens, which is a bit annoying, but yeah, we swing in. And then you see the Black Garden effect come in, bounce. You go for Kuraz, and I Valor the Kuraz just so that I don't get like max value draws, and then I take some damage. Jaina decides not to synchro here, which I think is kind of interesting, but you know, he does give me the ability to attack over the Kuraz. I normal summon Card Trooper, I mill 3 and then attack over. And yeah, at this point the back row is not too incredibly live. Jaina goes for the safe play to clear my board. Which, you know, does put me very low life. I like low-key wonder if I could have lost here. So here I drew and I like hesitated for a second, like, and so like she flipped Trap Dust Shoot. In hindsight, I technically had priority to activate the MST first, and so she asked when, and I wasn't really thinking. So I like I wasn't reading Dust Shoot there basically, and so I wanted to be fair, so I just let her resolve the Dust Shoot, even though in hindsight, I did have priority to slam this MST before she can flip the Trap Dust Shoot, which would mean the Dust Shoot couldn't resolve. So yeah, but it doesn't really make a big difference on the game. Like either way, I'm safe from losing the game here. So the Goblin Zombie goes back. I just set a card and pass, and you know, set the Spirit Reaper. It doesn't really matter. I then get a Call the Haunted play, which is like super nasty. And then make Levier into a 6, so yeah. Once the Revive King Hades is out, I can just deal with all the TG monsters, and it just gets hard, so Jaina just scoops. Start out another turn. I set a lot of back row. I have the Judgment for the Heavy Storm, so I just wanted to all in on it. We search Mizuki yet again. There is a duality into a Rush Rhino, and not much else going on. I get Crowed there, which is like totally fine. I don't really care about that. I summon Goblin Zombie because I don't really like, nothing really matters at this point. Now here was like 100% 50-50. Like if Jaina hits the Deprison over Decree, I think I just like get really screwed over, but because she didn't, I was able to just go Revive King and like kind of swing in and negate the Tengu, which feels really, really strong. There's just a pass. I get to go into another Levier, bring back Goblin Zombie, and I decided to just kind of go ham. I'm like, there's just no way that like she has like enough to deal with this, and I have all kinds of tools here. So I pitch Mizuki to bounce a call, and then I'm just like pushing for game. I'm like, if she has it, she has it. But I just kind of read there wasn't going to be a Gores, so because of the fact that there's so many field spells in this deck, and yeah, there was a Trag, but basically at the end of it all, with double Call the Haunted set, like no matter what she did this turn, she was kind of doomed. So that was game 2. A quick 2-0, and probably one of the most well-played games, and also one of the best games I had where, like, you kind of get to see the ceiling of, like, how much you can do in a single turn with zombies, where, like, I really got to pop off and make a really big board, which was super fun. So into game 3, or round 3, playing against the Paprika, playing Tengu plants. This one, I mean, honestly, I dueling book algorithm the Paprika pretty hard. I open trap dust shoot like way too much in this series. And I low-key, okay, so this was actually a big mistake. I did a little short on this, but I saw with my dust shoot that they had Solemn Judgment in hand, and then I just drew this MST, and their back row is super irrelevant to me right now. Like, I'm not really making a push or anything, but I just like kind of single brain cell slam this MST down, which was a huge mistake, right? Like, I just needed to wait until this judgment goes down because this is going to hurt me way more in the long run. So I had to, like, yeah, take my time on it. But because I slammed it, it just put me in this, like, weird spot where I just felt like it was, like, just the biggest misplay ever. Because then I draw into dad, and they saw that I, like, didn't have a way to deal with the judgment, so it's just like, you know, I basically had to, like, stall for a very long time and try to force out plays for the judgment. So I was like, here I could go into Revive King Hades because I can search Mizuki, and so even if they end up doing something where, like, you know, if they judgment the Revive King, then I can use Plague Spreader's effect and then drop dad, and it's still really good. So I was just trying to find a way to win off dad, but because judgment was here, I just could not get to it. So I just think, yeah, that MST was just a huge misplay that I just didn't consider. I get Veilered here and I attack in, and see the board just keeps getting bigger, and unfortunately, like, this just outs everything I'm trying to do. I still feel like it was like I was in an okay spot. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have even booked a moon there. I should have just let them go for a level 7 synchro. Like, who honestly cares? But yeah, so I make Utopia, and then the Foolish into the Spore is just enough to, like, win the game here. So yeah, that was just poorly played by me once again. I do think that, like, playing out in multiple different days means that you kind of put yourself in an awkward position of, I'm constantly playing to, like, you're constantly playing while, like, you're not super awake and stuff like that, so it's not the best, but I don't like making John, so, you know, I played bad. But yeah, we swing in, I set a card, and unfortunately got heavied, which, like, I was like, I low-key, like, predicted it would be heavy, and I feel bad that I didn't just, like, Randy space there. I get Scrap Dragoned, I have Dark Hole, which brings out Plague, and is fine by me. We go Mizuki into the Goblin Zombie, which is fine. There's a Leviathan Dragon play, which, like, I don't really care about that much, because now I get to drop Trag, and I get to search Zombie Master, so now I'm just able to out the Leviathan Dragon, except I get Veilered here, so I'm like, okay, because of the Veiler, I'm just gonna, like, go kind of ham here and deal with what they have. The Heavy Storm didn't feel super useful because I wasn't seeing any back row, so I went ham into Stardust with Trap Dust Shoot, and I felt like that was, like, super good, and it clearly was because there's, like, Torrential Spore Tengu. I lose my Trag, who cares? I normal summon Tour Guide and go into Leviair here, which, like, that was just a crazy top deck. So again, Trap Dust Shoot just, like, hard winning me another game. Like I said, I feel like I just dueling book algorithmed the Paprika pretty hard here. So then we go into another play. They try to, like, deal with my board, but I'm just like, I knew what their hand was, so I was like, I can just go ham here. And they're like, Gores is pretty unlikely. I also had warning set or whatever, so there's just no way I lose. Game 3, guess what? I open Trap Dust Shoot because I'm a psychopath. This, look how broken this. We got to take a minute to appreciate just how much of a slaughter this was. I blind mind control the Sangan, assuming it was either Sangan or Dandelion. I was like, either way, I can, like, swing in directly and overlay. Gores is the only thing that hard punishes me here. Otherwise, it just feels like the freest win of my life. So, like, I get Max Seed, who cares? I can attack in here, which lets me discard a card. And I end up pitching the Tengu, which was actually just the best card in their hand to pitch. I exceed and then go in for the Trap Dust Shoot. I leave them Gores because there's nothing they can do, and I have Veiler, so, like, it means I can slowly play this. I have to like slowly play around the gores. I have warning, but I'm trying to find a way to game, like just go for game while they try to like wall me off with gores. And here I have Mizuki and Grave, so I like went for a full rotation of passing, but then I decided to go for a normal summon Valor into a Armory Arm, and then I'm able to just go for BLS, and because I have warning set, I'm just able to win the game. So I just flip and show the warning, and that was a pretty clean push. This is, like I said, this is why I think BLS is like pretty good. You know, like I only had the one Valor, but it was more than enough to get things going. I also technically had an Armory Arm BLS if I wanted to make a play happen, but yeah, this feels pretty good when it's viable. But yeah, so that was round 3. Then round 4, this is the one I honestly feel disgusted about. I'm like genuinely upset with myself for how bad I played. So we'll look at game 1. Game 1, I go first. I just decided to like go for a T set, see what they got going on. I find out we're playing against heroes, so it is what it is. I get turn 1 Future Fusion into Dust Shoot, and so I was like, oh my god. It's like worst case scenario. I'm forced to just Monster Reborn Goblin Zombie and play around whatever. Again, Future Fusion's live. They know I have Torrential, so I'm just going to set and pass until the Future Fusion resolves, and then they almost like forgot, and I was like Torrential, so I just got rid of it. They summon the Alias. I'm trying to play around Gemini Spark as much as possible. Once I saw they didn't set anything after summoning Alias, it meant that I felt like I was safe to do this, so went for Utopia, swinging with Goblin Zombie, mill a card. And again, we're just kind of getting doodled here by these Alias, holding off on the Thunder King because of all the back row. Now, I kind of figured after they summoned the Thunder King that if they attacked and I deprisoned, they would just pass here because they didn't want me to get the third Dark. But here, honestly, so I knew they had Dark Hole in hand because they duality form. So I think I just misplayed really hard in this game because the reality is my graveyard is almost never going to be set up for Dark Armed again, and I need to just force this Dark Hole to come out. So I was trying to be greedy and hold the Dark Armed, but in reality, after I made this Caius play, I just needed to slam the Dark Armed and just attack directly with everything and try to like put him down as low as humanly possible, because that's what's realistically is going to force the Dark Hole and simplify the game, because basically this loomed over me the whole game, and because of that I like slowly just kind of like lost to it without it being played, if that makes sense. Like, because now we get Miracle Fusion into Miracle Fusion, which is, you know, it is what it is. They go for a Thunder King into Honest Play, which is going to try to like, you know, trying to win the game right there. I have the Deprison for the Absolute Zero. But see, this is where that problem is, like, because there's a Dark Hole. I set this, I draw into Sangan, and this was another huge misplay. Like, I saw them set a monster, and I low-key was reading that there was a, I low-key was reading that they had a set Snowman Eater, and so I was really debating on getting Valor, and for whatever reason, I just decided not to get Valor, which I just think was, again, another massive mistake, because I could have just searched Valor here and I'm completely safe from everything. I searched Tour Guide being super greedy, I attack in, and then I just get Monster Reborn into Snowman Eater, and I'm like, okay, well, I just lose the game there. So again, Valor completely saves me on that play. 100% saves me on that play if I just search Valor. So this hand's actually kind of nuts. I open Decree, MST, and a Spirit Reaper. So they go for Thunder King, which I was kind of hoping for. I get the Spirit Reaper, I'm able to MST the Future Fusion. They set 2, I Decree. I summon Card Trooper. I know they have Honest, but I saw that I had Plague Spreader, so I was like, I'll force out this Honest here, draw a card, and then use Plague Spreader's effect with Mind Control to just go for Trish, and that just feels like the best possible play. And yeah, they drew Solemn Judgment, and yeah, the game's just swiftly over. So of course, you know, we couldn't be playing a tournament bad unless I misplay game 3 super horribly too. You'll kind of see this is actually a very, very good game. It just sucks that I like misplayed so incredibly bad. So yeah, they start out with you know, searching Heavy Storm. This puts me in an awkward spot because, like, I knew that there's probably going to be a Thunder King coming in response to this Goblin Zombie, but I knew I just kind of had to eat it because I wanted to super poly their board, but I didn't want to, like, I didn't want to discard anything except Solemn Judgment here, and I also didn't want to risk getting Heavy Stormed on the super poly, so I was like, well, I just kind of have to pass and let it happen. So when they summoned it, I was like, yeah, it is what it is. Very unfortunate they just had the Thunder King, but, you know, I expected that. I super poly their board, which feels really, really good. And then go into Tour Guide into Sangan, because if they have anything else, I can just go for Caius. They have the Miracle Fusion, which is fine. I trolled them by saying Damage Step, which honestly, they were saying like they almost slammed Honest, so I shouldn't have even said just kidding. I honestly should have just held it, because I could have maybe baited the Honest there. They even said they thought about it after the game. I search off Sangan, which I search a Card Trooper, because I feel like, again, this is just the best tool to deal with Alias or Thunder King. I Randy Space the back row, which is actually like super ideal because it was Trap Dust Shoot, so I can't get Dust Shooted here, which means I'm able to tribute immediately for Caius. I attack in, and they have Honest again, which is just tilting my brains out at this point. Okay, and then I decided to Monster Reborn. I could have Monster Reborn Caius and played it safe, but I was kind of afraid of like a Gemini Spark or something, right? Like I figured they would eventually have something. Or I also thought if they draw into any other hero or monster like that, then they're going to make Utopia and just attack over Caius. So I figured the actual best play was just to go Monster Reborn back Goblin Zombie and then have a search and keep the engine going. And as long as they don't draw exactly Thunder King, I can't get punished. And of course, they drew exactly Thunder King, which was very unfortunate. But I still have plays, right? So we summon the Card Trooper. I am able to crash into the Thunder King and draw a card. I set Deep Prison. I get MST'd into Heavy Stormed, and I was like, oh my god, I'm just gonna lose here. But unfortunately, they didn't have a hero to slam, so for whatever reason, I mean, they could have just Miracle Fusioned with what's on their board, so that technically could have just been game right there. I don't know what that was, but I draw into Book of Moon. I set a card. I book their hero, and then I'm able to draw into Deprison. I'm able to Deprison the Alias, and then I set Decree. They set Warning. I Decree again, and then here is another misplay. I greeted once again by normal summoning Mizuki. I greeted super hard because there's how many draws in their deck? Like they have probably 2 more Thunder King and 2 more Alias left in deck that they could draw, or I guess 1 more Thunder King, 2 more Alias. So there's like 3 cards they could have drawn here that just hard win them the game by just swinging over. So if I would have just set this Mizuki, then I'm completely safer until I can like draw something better, and I have Zombies in Grave, which is like completely live. They draw into the Alias, and I just scoop. But look, I would have drawn Caius, which means had I played this better, they actually have no play. Like, I would have banished, if they would have just summoned this Alias, whether they Miracle Fusioned or not. They attack over the Mizuki. I'm able to just, on my next turn, use Mizuki, banish, bring back Goblin Zombie, tribute for Caius, banish this, and they have double back row set with Decree. Like, they actually can't play the game. There's no heroes in Grave. So, it definitely would have been a dub had I played this properly, but again, I just kind of trolled. The Goblin Zombie even would have searched me Zombie Master, which could have been game. But I played so incredibly poorly on this tournament, but hopefully you guys can see that, like, again, I don't really feel like the list itself underperformed or that, like, this list feels bad. I definitely feel like the list itself was really, really good. I technically have 1 more round in this tournament, but I think with X2 I can't possibly top 4, so because of that, I just decided, you know, I'll probably play that match out for fun, but this was where my tournament ended, so I figured this is where I would make the video. But yeah, that's probably going to wrap it up for this video. Fortunate performance by my part. I definitely know I can play better in the future, but this is what's really important about getting better at Yu-Gi-Oh! And getting better at decks, especially ones you're not as comfortable with, is, you know, you got to take the time and recognize what you could have done, what you did wrong, more so than thinking like you got sacked. Like, in a lot of ways, there was a lot of sacky things that happened. My opponent saw Honest very frequently and a lot of Dust Shoot very frequently. in their match against me. But you know, I did this in tournament as well to my round 3 opponent, just like how I was on the receiving end of it. So you know, it goes both ways, but I definitely think, you know, based on their misplay, this game was winnable. You know, again, if they would have just Miracle Fusioned with their alias on field, I think I lost this game regardless. But yeah, greeting for this Mizuki normal summon was just super troll. I definitely didn't expect them to just top the worst case scenario in every scenario, and it just kind of felt like that happened a lot in this game. So in some ways it was unlucky, in a lot of ways it was me playing bad. Yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully, you know, maybe this encourages you to give zombies a try. I get a lot of questions in my comments from people saying like, hey, what can you like give updated lists on the website? My website is there to give you guys like the baseline, like example, like starting points. And then usually when I play in tournaments, I'm trying to make an optimized version or what I think the list would look like, a better list would look like. So this would be me doing that for zombies. I really do believe in this list. I would 100% run this exact list back in a tournament again. And I would feel pretty comfortable or strongly doing that. I do think this list is very strong. And in fact, I actually feel more of a desire to play zombies again, just because of how hard it was. Like, I feel like this deck was so skillful. I actually feel like a desire to master this deck now. I think it's a lot of fun and very skillful. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to have a great time doing today.